What I wanted to do when I asked Jose Perez is to have a panel on energy reality. And why is that? It's because we have heard, we talk a lot about, and we have learned a lot throughout the few past years when energy has become a really big issue, a really hot issue, either be because of the environment issues or because generation issues. But what I want to do is do a panel to talk about reality, what we can actually do. What are some of the conflicts, some of the hurdles, moguls, if you will, and also just to kind of further develop or explain, what is going to be needed to actually fulfill the great demand we have right now for generation, which, as the last speaker mentioned, we have an issue in the Eastern Seaboard, we have an issue in the Western Seaboard, we have an issue throughout the United States for generation. So for the first question, and I would like just anyone to answer or opine on, question one. We are hearing a lot of ambitious rhetoric around the future of American energy. But from where each of you stand, what is the reality of what can actually be built in the next 3 to 5 years?
Reality is that we're building captive energy, and that's the challenge. It's the story. Now, Joe had a really great. Earlier it was stated that it's okay to be confrontational. In our email signatures at Red Post, we have a saying in Latin, which I can't say. I had to copy and paste it. But it translates as, the threat to violence must always remain present in a negotiation. And not violence, but the threat of it. And it's okay to close your laptop. It's okay to walk away. It's okay to not be compliant with the negotiations, because that has led us to a situation now where I can build a power plant around every corner. And I'm going to have to, because we can't transmit the electricity, the transmission. It's our grid, low flow constraints. We are being, constrained by our ability to transmit power. And so it's transmission, it's not rotating equipment. People say, well, turbines are 5 years to get, well, they've always been 5 years. You want to put a gigawatt in? It's always been that long. It's nothing new. It's the amount of electricity that we can transmit is the constraint on the American grid. It's the constraint on how much we can do. It's not our ability to build power plants. I could build one. I'd love to build one. Anybody raise their hand, I'll build one for you. It's the ability to get that power out, which constrains us.
I would also add to that is supply chain, and I think some of that was touched on earlier, and that has an issue. We can't change that overnight, but actively pursuing companies to come. I know we did that in Virginia. Aggressively pursue different companies across the energy sectors in order to increase the domestic supply chain and the in-state supply chain as much as possible. But I think, and transmission, frankly, is the unsexy part. So when you watch like state legislatures and so on, nobody really wants to talk about transformers transmission. In fact, a recently elected governor made a very public statement of, we don't need any additional transmission, at which point my heart stopped briefly. And I thought, I don't know who is advising you, but that is, completely wrong. So I think that's an issue. I think communication's an issue. I mean, it's been touched on by various people throughout today that it's so important that groups like yours, speak up and attend meetings and speak to legislators, because please God, don't let the politicians make all the decisions regarding energy. And I've worked for enough of them where I can say that with full assurance. But because they tend to see things in silos and in election cycles, and they're not thinking necessarily about the business and the operations. And for those utility companies that have to deal with the varying political winds at all times, I've seen it just, within our state in particular, how well and how often they are communicating with those that are casting those votes on these various policies. And that communication is essential, but also from a business perspective, because politicians aren't necessarily thinking about that you need to plan so many years in advance. And when those policies keep changing, it makes it incredibly difficult to make those business decisions. And I believe the last keynote mentioned they're looking every 6 months now instead of a 5-year plan. And I think that's smart.
So I think we're in a very unique period for the energy industry. Right now, positions like the one that I have used to be in many states, they used to be perk positions. So a governor would have a ally or a supporter, and they'd give them one of these opportunities to sit at the commission and not worry much about them anymore, but they'd make a little money on the side. I don't make a little money on the side today. And today, those positions become significantly more political. There are people campaigning for them. There are people openly spending and investing opportunities to try and find ways to get onto a commission. You have advocacy organizations that are encouraging to pick one person or another because that person supports an initiative that they're interested in. The commissions, when they're first were created so many years ago, decades ago actually, were created specifically because they were supposed to be neutral and kept outside of the political discourse, kept outside of the which fuel is the best fuel discourse, for the main purpose of doing one thing. Regardless of who was in the room, you needed to keep the lights on, you needed to keep the air conditioner and the heaters working, you needed to keep the infrastructure safe, and of course, keeping it affordable for everybody. We've kind of gotten to a point now where people are starting to think about that again. And that's become a unique opportunity that I'm hoping we don't miss, because we kind of can't miss it, because right now we have a wide range of consumers, from residential, Mrs. Jones and Mrs. Diaz on the corner, all the way up to the largest load companies and entities out there that are all focused on what's the best way to bring energy to their doorstep and to their meter so that they can continue operating and running their business or living in their home. That didn't always used to be that way. And we need to make certain that we take advantage of this opportunity, not just because of the many challenges and opportunities that are out there for building out our infrastructure and for building out new generation, but also for making sure that as a nation, we're moving in a way that is competitive with other nations around the world.
Thank you.